Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very, very special watch-through commentary of the 2010 BBC4 Dirk Gently TV pilot. My name is Ed, otherwise known as Edward. I'm joined by my good friend Nemo and Louie, otherwise known as Vogon Poet. Right, there we go. The tea's being spilled.
Milk poured after, though. Douglas would be aghast.
So one of the things I've always heard is the BBC4 series, especially this episode, is too faithful to the original novel, especially since the BBC America show came out. It's not what people were saying at the time, of course. And I don't know. I think there's certain decisions that I think maybe make people think that way. Lots of repeated dialogue. There's a scene coming up immediately after this with Richard breaking into his Susan's house, which is very much from the book. And but I wonder what you guys think about that in general.
I think they did like some weird changes. They tried to do their own spin on the first book, but why did they do some of the weirder changes later? I don't know. Why are Susan and Gordon now dating? That was so weird to me.
That is a good point, actually, and I do want to get into that because it's a kind of weird thing where in the book they're brother and sister, and here they're kind of Susan is Susan Harmison, so she's not related to him in the first place. So, it's definitely very weird.
My memory of watching it is I felt that they'd taken lots of plot elements as individual, unique things from the novels and then just mashed them up into a brand new story in different order with different emphasis and different reasons for things. But so it had this really weird, uncanny valley almost to it. So I'm going to be watching and seeing if I still get that impression.
Here we go. He doesn't do this in the book. He doesn't beg him to pick up the phone. He literally just picks it up without any prompting, which is quite funny.
Rule 1 of housebreaking: never answer the phone when you're in the middle of a job.
Like you were saying, Nemo, the thing is, a lot of the context of... Because the reason Richard breaks into Susan's house in the book is because... Spoilers, there's a ghost trying to possess him, and it's not something he would normally do, because obviously it's a high-rise flat in the book.
Yeah.
But here, that context is gone, so it's... Richard comes off, I gotta be honest in this, especially at the beginning here, as a much less likeable character than he is in the novel. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, take issue with as well. And it does kind of make me wonder as well, is he the right character to be the sort of everyman, sort of assistant partner to Dirk? I'm not sure he's necessarily the first person I'd pick because he's got a very, very distinctive personality in that book. He's a computer programmer, he's quite intelligent, and here they sort of have to nerf his intelligence quite a lot.
Yeah, they've grabbed the name and otherwise ignored the character.
Yeah. Like, it's so weird seeing him say these mean things about Susan because he's so nice and sweet in the book. It's so odd.
Yeah. If Susan didn't do a certain thing later on, I would feel a lot more sorry for her after the way Richard treats her in this. Susan has a line later on that says,
I think he blames me for losing his job.
And there's a sort of thing going on where they try and tie in the financial crisis that was going on at the time.
That's a perfect example of interconnectedness. You see, a clinically obese American fails to pay his mortgage, the ripples cross the ocean, and you are cast onto the slag heap of the long-term unemployed.
Dirk sort of directly talks about the subprime mortgage crisis in the US and how that's effectively had a knock-on effect that caused Richard to lose his job. And it's an interesting thing that I hadn't really strung together the last time I watched this. But this is also funny as well because I like the dialogue here where Dirk's like, oh, where do you think Henry the cat might be? And Richard's like, have you tried the warehouse? And Dirk's like, oh, that's a good point. I'll go check the warehouse. And Richard just decides to tag along. There's no sort of, do you want to come along with me moment. He just randomly decides he wants to be part of this adventure now. Even though he's incredibly reluctant.
It gets the plot moving, so I can...
Oh yeah, Richard is just vibing. In this series, like, a lot of the time you cannot understand why he's following Dirk. I guess he's bored because he doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
That's very true.
That's a good point.
And now we get to the warehouse with the conspicuous clues here. They do a good job actually of building the atmosphere here, but the special effect that's coming up is incredibly unconvincing.
It's so funny. I love it. It's so bad.
Yeah, that is part of the charm. My dad always talks about 1981 Hitchhikers and sort of the low-budget Zaphod second head. It's all sort of part of the charm. And for me, I sort of feel similar way about the BBC Four show. The sort of it's made for peanuts and sort of stuff like what we're about to get here when this computer goes up is hilarious.
Incorrect access.
Oh, he's done it now.
His acting is so good.
And those aren't explosives. I'm pretty sure they just say a load of numbers on them.
Here we go.
Ultimate green screen, David. Look at those flames as well on Gordon's shitty car in the
so
background.
Bad. I really love it.
And we're also going to get the intro sequence, and this is probably a good opportunity to talk about the soundtrack of this, which I really love, by Daniel Pemberton, because I think the BBC America show Christabel Tapia de Veer gets a lot of the love. But I think Daniel Pemberton, who's gone on to be really successful, scored all the Spider-Verse movies, and among other things. It's really insane that he got to start on like little shows like Dirk Gently as well. Here we go.
I love this song.
It's just good to have to resist the urge to sing along with it. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think the people who made this starter sequence, they put a video up on YouTube that uses a demo track of Daniel Pemberton's theme as well. And this is all just done in After Effects as well, which is really cool. Which is something that I've used too. And obviously this is filled with loads and loads of references, like I'm pretty sure the I-Ching calculator is mentioned there. And then we got the most least convincing fire truck in the world in the background here.
One thing I find about the characters in this version is it feels like they were made into like more of assholes than they were in the original book. Like Richard and Susan, they're pretty nice characters in the book, but they're just like worse people here.
I don't care that you haven't got a job. I don't care that you sit at home all day watching TV. I don't even care that you've stopped taking regular showers.
Wow, and that's the detail that makes Richard the most relatable character here. But it's interesting, a thing about British TV versus Americans is that they're not afraid to make your main characters just kind of unlikable. And I suppose what they're going for, like I said, is they want to give Richard a sort of arc where he starts off and he's kind of given up, and Dirk ends up, in a weird way, forcing him into having a purpose and growing a bit of a backbone. But it's not. I think the execution leaves a little bit to be desired, because I think maybe they go a little bit too far in direction of making Richard just way too unlikable here, to the point that even Susan, who we discover has some interesting tactics at work, is kind of more likable than him.
Yeah, for the
Even
whole...
Dirk, actually, somehow is the most likable character in this whole episode, in my opinion, despite the fact that he's the least trustworthy and the most manipulative.
They do write him well for making him the fun driver of the plot, which is something that was missing in the first Dirk Gently novel.
That's absolutely true, actually. He's a much more active character. Mentioning Daniel Pemberton, the whole of Dirk's office here, of it being as messy and cluttered as possible, is based on Daniel Pemberton's own office, where he does all his soundtrack. I believe it's still messy. Apparently the reason is he just never has time to clean up in between doing projects, which, and again, very relatable.
I can sympathise with that.
I know, the office design is very good.
Oh no, he's painting over all the references to the book.
Ah, my refrigerator.
Oh yeah, the fridge. I'd forgotten about that.
Fucking fridge.
My cleaner has padlocked the fridge in my flat. We're engaged in a standoff from which neither of us is prepared to back down. It is the Cold War writ small.
And that's our second novel reference.
And again, that's all we hear of that plot until the cleaner episode.
Oh my god.
Ah, this is classic. Good old Austin Leyland princess. And get ready for Google image montage. Whoa!
This is very funny.
It's taken me to all these Google images, Richard.
I think you find all good detectives drive classic cars.
What saw an Austin Leyland princess quite counts as a classic.
So the interesting thing here about the princess is it's basically it's a little bit of a piss take of Inspector Morse, because he drives like an old Mark II Jaguar from the 60s, and the show was made in like late 80s, and lots of detective shows do the same thing in the UK, where they just drive a classic car just for nostalgia reasons, rather than because it's a great car necessarily. So that's why it's so unreliable. But also Howard Overman's dad, apparently, who's the writer, of course, he owned Austin Leyland Princess. And apparently there's a line that Richard says about...
Oh, it's up with these gears. It's like playing Russian roulette.
And that's apparently something that Howard Overman's dad would joke about often while driving the car. And Howard Overman always saw it as a sign that his dad was broke, which is probably true, definitely true for Dirk in this.
I seem to have left my wallet at the office. We'll offset the cost against your account.
That's very Dirk, just scamming scamming costs from others.
What price would you place on saving your relationship from ending in a black sea of acrimony and despair?
There we go, first example of Dirk. Oh, I love the gulp that Darren Boyd does there. That's an amazing piece of acting. And but that's the first example of the manipulation that Dirk does in this episode. Notice how whenever Richard is asked by Dirk to do something he doesn't want to do, he says, I'm not going to do it. And then Dirk says, well, if you don't, then your relationship with Susan is over, basically, so you have to do it. Oh, that's such great special effects. Let's zoom in on it in the flashback.
You think we should talk to the police?
As any Irishman will tell you, when things start exploding, it's best to avoid the police at all costs.
Nice little reference to the Troubles there.
If Star Trek is to be believed, Ireland will reunify next year.
Oh, interesting.
You'll find your girlfriend's email account has already got them.
Excellent work.
There we go, Dirk the drug dealer.
Surely we're all allowed some pleasures, Macduff. Delete at will.
Well, I'm not sure I want to get involved in all this.
You are already involved, Macduff, and to a greater degree than you...
I do wonder why they do have this conversation just next to the fence, because I imagine if I was a teacher and these two weird guys looking at a laptop in front of my school, I tell them to bugger off.
They look so shady.
It is not the best look.
2010 was a different time. Oh, horse discovered in college bathroom. There we go. Another nice little reference.
Furious that both Gordon Way and Henry the Cat disappeared on the same day.
Also another reference on the back of the newspaper. Can you trust hypnosis? For some reason, that's the headline of the sports pages, which I find very interesting.
This may be my favorite bit.
Do you wish to know the nature of Gordon Way's intentions towards your girlfriend or not?
There's that manipulation again.
Then I would kindly ask you to prostrate yourself on the grass.
Prostrate yourself. There we go. No way out of it now.
Right, now don't move. Not a single muscle, understood? What am I doing?
It is very Dirk to not explain.
Here we go. We're going to see Stephen Mangan's reaction to BBCA fans not knowing who he is.
No one knows who I am! Do you know who I am? Do you know me?
No.
He looks like the Asian alien guy here.
I'm right here!
Oh, God.
What are you doing?
Don't get my crew! Whoa!
Also, look at the glass pane. You can actually see Stephen Mangan moving around before he's supposed to have revealed himself. There he is. You can tell just because he's made the hair so big for his little performance there. Just a great scene. And there we go, top it all off. Time to eat.
Free meal. Why wouldn't you?
He just takes the bib with him as well, of course he does.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Underrated part of Dirk's characterization here is his manic kleptomania. He just keeps stealing things across this series.
Gordon Way is a billionaire. Even as a confirmed heterosexual, I'd have to say he's an extremely attractive man.
Oh, God. I love how Dirk there needs to emphasize, even as a confirmed heterosexual, I might go gay for Gordon Way.
Yeah, sure, Dirk.
Sounds very like a man very insecure about his sexuality, just trying to reinforce it.
It's so funny they had to no homo him.
What can I do for you?
Susan Thomas.
Worst scene ever.
This scene. Oh, God, no. Get out while you can, Dirk.
Oh, dear.
Why did they do this?
2010 was a different time, as I say.
Yeah, it's very 2000s humor lingering.
A little bit, yeah. And also, if the genders were reversed here, this scene would be probably even more, if anything, more uncomfortable.
It would be very bad.
That's the thing with the human body. Everything's connected.
No.
This is such a weird scene. When I rewatch, I just skip it because it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Well, we'll have to do it together now. Oh god. You know, I've watched the sex scenes from The Room, and I think they're a little bit easier to stomach than this.
I thought you might be here to talk to me about Ruth's cat.
Oh, don't turn around. It's a good thing that this sexual harassment gets followed up on later, I guess. You know a scene's bad when even the writers of future episodes go back and call Susan out on that.
Message for Dr. Gently. Thank you for the reference concerning Susan Harmison. I really appreciate your candidness about her history of sexually harassing patients. We've clearly had a lucky escape.
They're like, oh yeah, we fucked up.
I just feel like it could have just cut to this scene. We didn't really need the Susan makes Dirk strip to humiliate him scene. And this is where we find out that Gordon Way has been given all of the character traits of Richard McDuff. Which is even more weird in hindsight.
Kind of what I was saying before about the episode takes elements from the books, plot elements, character elements, and just blends them into something brand new.
I think rather than doing a really, really rushed version of Detective Agency, I'm kind of glad that they sort of just took a couple of strands, tried to put a lot of familiar elements in there, but use them to tell a new story. But that said, I do sort of prefer the later episodes where they've clearly got a bit more confidence to sort of do a bit more of their own thing, and the book elements, plot elements like reason, for example, they'll sort of thread it in a bit more of a natural way, whereas here I think it's a little bit more jarring if you've just read the book. But like I said, maybe it's sort of designed in mind for people to go back and read the book.
Yeah, I agree with your take on the episode. I prefer the later ones.
Yeah, I think they had to get past doing a version of the story from the novel, even if it's not the story, it's the elements, and then that gave them the momentum to start doing more original stories.
Another thing I like about the little flashback elements is to make the characters look younger. They just give Dirk and Ruth curlier hair, and they give Richard a wig.
It's one of the charming things, like the bad CGI. I watched this episode with a friend of mine who's really into like traditional detective stories, and she kept trying to like figure out the plot, and I was like, you're not gonna get it. The logic doesn't work here.
Yeah, that's certainly true. It's certainly, you need a certain mindset to sort of, if you're in the sort of prediction game for Dirk Gently, you need to be very much sort of very open mind to all sorts of sci-fi premises. Oh, and he just bags a load of Bourbon cream biscuits there.
Are you sleeping with Gordon Way?
Is that what you think of me?
Just answer the bloody question!
I have tried to make you happy. I've tried. I have really tried, but...
I spent the whole show just wishing they would, like, split up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need a reason for us to be together.
No, don't...
When Susan is saying stuff like, I need a reason for us to be together, you're sort of thinking, well, there isn't really one, is there? Here we go, another great character. And he's been promoted as well, because he was Detective Sergeant in the book, and he worked in the Cambridge Constabulary. Now he's been moved to the Met, and he's a Detective Inspector, which is a higher rank.
If you so much as mention the interconnectedness of all things, I'll have you arrested under the anti-terror laws.
Anti-terror laws have gotten, if anything, even stricter since 2010 as well, so that's not an empty threat from Jilks.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Jason Watkins, by the way. He's perfect casting as Jilks, in my opinion. Right, and now Act 3, and the board is full of nonsense. He writes about the warehouse explosion. He says Macduff causes warehouse explosion, which is hilarious because he pressed the key and caused it. The other thing is he crossed out where he spelt Macduff's name wrong. He crosses the whole thing out and just starts again, which I find a hilarious detail.
You've definitely paid more attention to that than probably anybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, Macduff, we must ensure you do not fritter it away on some indulgent whim.
Most of Stephen Mangan's facial expressions, I think, there's meme-worthy in this sometimes, when he's like implying that he wants to steal Richard's money.
At any given moment, he is implying theft.
I believe you, Macduff, hold the key to finding Henry the cat.
Me?
I would suggest you allow me to hypnotise you.
And this is where Dirk tries the manipulation thing, but he can't use the, oh, Susan, you'll lose Susan if you don't do this, because he's already broken up with Susan. So the solution is he just bullies Richard into doing it, which I don't think worked quite as well.
Smash the door open.
I don't trust hypnosis. You can make me do anything.
Oh, get a grip, Macduff!
Yeah, he just goes a little bit too big here, in my opinion.
He just goes fully unhinged.
Yeah.
And I'm sex with a watermelon!
Look at the glass that Dirk's holding here. It disappears between shots.
You are feeling sleepy.
Again, classic effect. That glass is gone. He didn't even put it down. I like the implication that this chair Richard is sitting on is the hypnosis chair that he just uses whenever he needs to do this.
Any self-respecting detective would have an hypnosis chair.
Stop the car, Dirk! Stop the car!
Gordon kind of should have been looking when he was crossing the road, admittedly.
His spooky hair.
I also like the implication that this sort of thing happens so often to Dirk that he's completely forgotten about running over Gordon.
I think Dirk just has no shame about things like that. He's not one to reflect and feel guilty. It's like, it happened. Can't do anything about it now. Move on.
Yeah, no shame is definitely a character trait.
He reversed into him.
I believe you can still see the dent in the princess.
Okay, that's funny. The dent is still there in the car 16 years later. The princess's most loyal companion, and it's got the scars to prove it.
I've been looking for someone like you. Someone with a raw, natural talent. You should think about coming into business with me.
I just love the instant follow-up. You should think about coming into business with me, and then just slaps him around the face full on.
This show has like a high rewatch value, just like for all the references and little things.
Especially considering this is a BBC4 show that aired once and then was like forgotten about essentially. I think they did repeat the pilot in like early 2011 a few times after it got renewed for the full series, but other than that, yeah, the BBC have like washed their hands of this, and it really only exists on DVDs, which I think is a big shame. I think that's one of the reasons why it's not better known, because it's part of it's the timing, that it's like hidden away on like Amazon Prime somewhere, I think, and even then I'm not sure if it's still there.
Yeah, it was hard for me to like actually find this and watch it. I had to go through totally illegal means to do it, and it was not easy.
Let me take you back to 1994.
I like how Dirk just cannot decide where he wants to do this speech from in this scene. Nope, not on the counter.
I love Stephen Mangan's just like physical acting as well, like all the micro expressions and the little movements. They're all so on point.
Just sitting on the chair wrong and nearly falling over. I'm not sure if that's almost certainly scripted, but he plays it like it isn't.
Yeah.
So he set about building a time machine.
I like the way that Dirk announces time machine and expects everybody to go like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense now.
As us rewatching, we totally buy Dirk, but I think first time you watch this, you're definitely with Susan, Richard, and in this.
You are actually insane, aren't you?
Am I?
Well, he is, but this is still true.
Yes.
For unrelated reasons, yes.
Yes.
As much as this is the more grounded series, there's still stuff like this in it, which I think works fine.
Really says something when the more grounded adaptation has like time travel, robots, and what give you. Oh, this is cute. Like, this is actually sweet.
Yeah, it is.
I do love how they contrast Ruth's genuine love for her cat with her relationship with her husband and what happened we're about to see in a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Gently.
You are so welcome. I believe you'll find the bill for my services distressingly modest.
I love how he slides that envelope like he's been preparing that all episode.
He's such a dick.
I'm curious about one thing, Mrs. Jordan. What caused you to murder your husband?
I don't know how Dirk thought the response to this question would go.
He was an abusive, unpleasant bastard, Mr. Gently.
I like how she's just like, yeah, I killed him. Completely matter of fact, once she's confronted with it, and Susan's reaction was like, wait, what? Dirk got something right? Is everything correct?
That's the reasonable reaction, I feel.
I feel a bit sorry for Gordon here as well, because this plan, if he just moved on, his plan would probably have worked, but he's such a good person, he thinks, I got time, I can help this innocent-looking old lady.
Yeah.
And then he gets the frying pan. Is he? Somehow a more embarrassing death for Gordon than the one he gets in the book.
Yeah, it's worse.
You can't prove any of this. And besides, all of you will soon be dead.
Nonchalantly dead.
If we get through this, I will fix it. I will. I'll get the job. I'll stop being so bloody miserable. And I'll take a shower every day, twice a day. And I won't leave my pants everywhere.
Yeah. And just like that, relationship solved.
With a death threat.
It's no laughing matter, Jilts! A devious, evil bitch! That's who did it!
You could just imagine Jilks relishing getting that news from Dirk.
This is such a funny scene.
You know, it's hard these days to find a free bed in the NHS with all the waiting lists, you know. I'm surprised they got in so quickly.
Well, it's clearly an overdose. Do you want to tell me why she might want to take her own life?
She just ate all the Bourbon creams. It wasn't an overdose.
Did the deceased by any chance leave a cheque for me?
Get out.
Have you looked? Right.
Out.
Okay.
It's like, okay, she's dead, but do I get paid?
That's very Dirk.
We know Richard's got his life together, by the way, because he's wearing a suit now.
You can tell he's doing better because he's wearing a suit.
Oh my god.
A, the hypnosis is not that strong if it only takes one conversation for Richard to realise that Dirk has fleeced him. And B, his relationship with Susan is not that strong if he didn't think to tell her beforehand.
Yeah.
Susan is starting to doubt, oh, maybe Dirk was telling the truth or not. And what seals the deal is when she looks at the newspaper and sees East 17, the boy band from '94 that was riding high in the charts. Oh no, East 17,
Yep.
It must be true. Also, this emotional moment is also severely undercut by replaying Gordon comedically being bonked on the head, complete with sound effect as well.
I'm just impressed that she was able to turn the phone on and it instantly worked.
Yeah, the battery life in 2010 a lot better than now.
At that point being it's like, when was it last charged?
I want my money back.
I'm afraid that won't be possible on account that the money is no longer in my possession.
Well, none of it.
It must be Barbados. Listen to that music.
Yeah.
A most intriguing case, Macduff. I have plotted and triangulated the vectors of all the various events and occurrences and traced them to a 5-star hotel in Barbados.
Google Map Zoom.
And that's not Barbados either. That's
Yeah, that's Cuba.
yeah, that's Hispaniola, which is 1,000 miles west. So whoever typed it into Google Maps got it wrong.
Holy shit. I was like, wait, why are they zooming out of fucking Cuba?
13 years on then. Wow.
Holy shit.
It's one of those episodes where you can watch it and there's a real feeling of potential there. Like, and we know that some of that potential paid off in the following episodes that they made. But watching that, if they hadn't made anything more, I think we'd be watching it going like, they could have done something good with that, but it could have also done something terrible with it. So yeah, we got on the good timeline for that one.
Yeah, on the whole, even though we're still disappointed we only got 4 episodes in total, but yeah, it's good that Stephen Mangan wasn't the Dirk that could have been. And also, I don't think this would have been a satisfying ending. Dirk just gets off to Barbados and spends all of Richard's money. That would have been a really unsatisfying end.
Yeah, but again, it has that feeling of elements from the book just blended up and turned into a new story, because in the book Dirk goes to Barbados or West Indies and that's charged to whatever client in the story. I think that's just we only hear about that in a telephone call in the story in the book.
It's pretty solid, I think, like besides the weird bits, like a really solid pilot. It's fun. I love the little mannerisms and I love how rewatchable it is.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in it.
Yeah. Good summary.
But thanks, Nemo. Thanks, Louie, for joining me. And thank you to you as well for listening. And hopefully we've recorded this, put it together, and it makes some sort of sense.
Yes.
Tune in next time when we do I Want to Invade Switzerland, which is my name for the first episode of the full 2012 Dirk Gently BBC4 series, with Steve Mangan and Darren Boyd returning once more. So bye for now, and see you then.
See yous.